You've been bleeding power through your face. Every micro-expression, every twitch of anger, every flash of frustration. They've been watching, they've been recording, they've been cataloging your emotional tells like a poker player studies their opponent's nervous habits. And you handed them the information freely. You thought you were being authentic. You thought showing emotion made you human, relatable, trustworthy. But what it actually made you was readable, predictable, controllable. Every time someone pushed your buttons and you reacted, you gave them confirmation. Every time you showed excitement too early, you revealed your hand. Every time you displayed frustration, you showed them exactly where to apply pressure. Your emotions became their roadmap. Your reactions became their leverage. Your face became their instruction manual for manipulating you. But today, that ends. Today, you discover why the most dangerous people in any room are the ones whose faces reveal nothing. Why? Leaders who show no emotion command more respect than those who wear their hearts on their sleeves. Why Machiavelli understood that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about weaponizing the absence of them. In the next several minutes, you'll learn 10 principles that transform you from an open book into an unreadable force. You'll discover how emotional opacity creates power, how stillness generates fear, how a blank expression becomes the most aggressive move you can make. Machiavelli never taught people to be emotionless robots. That's what weak minds believe when they're uncomfortable with his observations. What he actually taught was infinitely more dangerous. He taught that those who control their emotional display control the entire interaction. He watched princes rise and fall based solely on whether they could mask their true state. He observed that the moment a ruler's face betrayed fear, panic spread through their kingdom. The moment they showed anger, prematurely, enemies knew exactly what would provoke poor decisions. Emotional transparency wasn't authenticity. It was strategic suicide. Most people think power is loud. They think it's aggressive displays and passionate speeches. But real power sits across from you with a face that gives away nothing. Real power absorbs your attacks without flinching. Real power watches you spiral into panic while maintaining perfect calm. The person who never shows emotion in battle isn't cold. They're in complete control. And control is the only currency that matters when someone's trying to manipulate you. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unreadable. Number 1. Your face is a broadcast system. Machiavelli observed something most people never consciously realize. Your facial expressions are transmitting information constantly. Not just obvious emotions, but micro signals about your confidence level, your comfort with the current situation, your reaction to specific words or topics. Manipulators aren't listening to what you say. They're reading what you show. Here's what nobody tells you. Every emotional reaction you display trains the people around you. When you frown at a certain topic, they learn that topic bothers you. When you light up at specific praise, they learn exactly how to gain your favor. When you show frustration at delays, they learn that patience is your weakness. You're essentially providing a detailed instruction manual titled, How to Control Me. Most people believe that showing emotion builds connection and trust. They think authenticity means wearing every feeling on their face. But here's the reality. Emotional transparency with manipulators is like playing poker with your cards facing outward. You might feel authentic, but you're guaranteeing you'll lose. These people aren't connecting with your emotions. They're cataloging them for future exploitation. The moment you show joy about a project, they know what to threaten when they need leverage. The moment you show worry about something, they know exactly what fear to amplify when they want you compliant. Imagine you're in a negotiation. The other person mentions a number. Most people's faces immediately react. Either satisfaction that it's higher than expected, or disappointment that it's lower. That micro-reaction just told the other person everything they need to know about your position. But picture someone whose face remains completely neutral regardless of the number mentioned. The other person is now negotiating blind. They have no idea if they've offered too much or too little. That uncertainty creates psychological pressure that shifts the entire dynamic. Or imagine someone criticizes your work. Most people's faces show hurt, anger, or defensiveness within a second. That reaction confirms the criticism landed and encourages more of it. But someone whose face remains perfectly calm while absorbing criticism sends a different message. Entirely. It says, "This doesn't affect me. You have no power here. Try harder." This isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about understanding that your face is a weapon that's currently being used against you. The goal is to take that weapon back. When you stop broadcasting your internal state, people lose their primary mechanism for controlling you. They can't calibrate their attacks because they're getting no feedback. They can't tell if they're winning or losing. That uncertainty makes them hesitate. And hesitation is where you gain the advantage. This is about awareness and control. You feel everything. You process everything. But you choose what you display. That choice is power. Drop this in the comments. I control my display. Number 2. Stillness communicates danger. Machiavelli understood that movement betrays nervousness. Fidgeting signals discomfort. Excessive gestures indicate someone trying too hard to convince. But complete stillness does something to the human brain. It triggers a primal response. When predators go still before attacking, prey animals freeze. That same mechanism exists in humans. When you maintain perfect physical stillness while someone speaks, especially when they're attacking or provoking you, something shifts in their nervous system. They expect movement. They expect reaction. They expect some form of physical response that tells them their words are landing. Your stillness denies them that feedback, and the absence of expected feedback creates profound psychological discomfort. Most people respond to aggression with physical agitation. They lean forward, they gesture, they shift in their seats. Their hands move. Their breathing becomes visible. All of this movement communicates that the aggression is working. The attacker sees the physical disruption and knows they've gotten under your skin. But someone who goes completely still in response to aggression sends an entirely different signal. That stillness suggests either complete indifference or complete control. Either one is terrifying to someone whose power depends on emotional reactions. Here's what happens physiologically. When you maintain stillness during confrontation, the other person's mirror neurons start firing without getting the expected response. Their brain is predicting your movement patterns and getting nothing. This creates cognitive dissonance that manifests as anxiety. They start moving more to compensate for your stillness. Their discomfort increases. Their performance degrades. Picture someone verbally attacking you in a meeting. Most people's bodies react immediately. Shoulders tense, posture shifts, hands clench. But imagine sitting in perfect stillness. No change in breathing, no adjustment in posture. Eyes steady, face neutral. Just absorbing their words like a wall absorbs water. What happens to the attacker? They escalate at first, expecting to break your composure. But when nothing changes, when you remain perfectly still, their confidence begins to crack. They start wondering what you know that they don't. They start questioning whether their attack is even registering. Eventually, your stillness makes their aggression look unhinged. Or picture someone trying to provoke you into a reaction through interruptions or dismissive gestures. Most people mirror that energy with their own agitated movements. But remaining perfectly still while they perform creates a stark contrast. Observers notice. The still person appears controlled and powerful. The moving person appears desperate and weak. This isn't about being passive. It's about understanding that unnecessary movement broadcasts vulnerability. When you master stillness, you communicate something far more powerful than any gesture could convey. You communicate that whatever is happening doesn't move you, literally and figuratively. That immovability is what separates those who get controlled from those who refuse to be moved. Number 3, emotional delay creates authority. Machiavelli observed that rulers who responded instantly to provocations were easy to manipulate. Their immediate emotional reactions could be predicted and triggered at will. But leaders who imposed a delay between stimulus and response became nearly impossible to control. That pause wasn't hesitation, it was power. When you receive information that would typically trigger an immediate emotional response, and you instead pause before reacting, you accomplish several things simultaneously. You deny the other person confirmation that their tactic worked. You give yourself time to choose your response rather than defaulting to your programmed reaction. And you communicate that you operate on your own timeline, not theirs. Most people react in real time. Someone insults them, and anger appears instantly. Someone threatens them, and fear shows immediately. Someone praises them, and pleasure flashes across their face. This real-time emotional broadcasting makes them puppets. Manipulators simply need to pull the right string and watch the predictable response. But here's what smart people understand. The delay itself is a response, a powerful one. When someone expects immediate emotion and gets measured stillness instead, it disrupts their entire script. They were prepared for your anger. They were ready for your fear. They anticipated your excitement. What they weren't prepared for was nothing. That nothing forces them to wait, and waiting transfers power. Imagine someone delivers news meant to upset you. Most people's faces show the upset within milliseconds. But picture receiving that news, maintaining a neutral expression, and simply saying, "I'll need to think about that." Then you end the conversation. The person who delivered the news is now in limbo. Did it work? Did you even care? Are you planning something? That uncertainty is far more powerful than any immediate emotional outburst could have been. Or imagine someone makes an offer designed to seem generous, but is actually manipulative. Most people's faces show either gratitude or suspicion immediately. But remaining neutral and saying, "I'll consider it and get back to you," accomplishes something crucial. It removes you from their pressure timeline. They can't use your immediate emotional reaction to close the manipulation. You've created space for analysis rather than emotion. This isn't about being slow. It's about refusing to dance on someone else's emotional schedule. When you impose a delay between trigger and response, you're announcing that you don't operate on autopilot. You're demonstrating that your emotions don't control you. That demonstration is what makes others think twice before trying to manipulate you. They know there's a barrier between stimulus and response. That barrier is what keeps you untouchable. Drop this in the comments. I choose my timing. Number 4, your opponents need your reactions. Here's what manipulators depend on for everything they do: feedback. They need to know their tactics are working. They need confirmation that they're applying pressure to the right places. They need your emotional reactions to calibrate their next move. Without that feedback, they're operating blind. And people operating blind make mistakes. Machiavelli saw this pattern repeat throughout political manipulation. The targets who gave constant emotional feedback were easy to destroy. The targets who gave nothing were nearly impossible to read, predict, or control. Your emotional reactions are the fuel that powers manipulation. Remove the fuel and the entire engine stops. Most people don't realize they're providing a feedback loop. When someone tests a boundary and sees annoyance on your face, they've learned exactly where your boundary is. When someone makes a subtle insult and watches for your micro-expression of hurt, they've confirmed that insult is an effective weapon against you. Every reaction you show is data they're collecting. Every emotion you display is a vulnerability they're cataloging. But here's the reversal. When you stop providing reactions, they lose their data source. They're making moves without knowing if those moves are effective. That uncertainty forces them into increasingly desperate tactics. And desperate tactics are obvious tactics. They start revealing themselves because they're trying harder to get the reaction you're withholding. Picture someone who's been gradually escalating disrespect, testing how much you'll tolerate. Most people show increasing irritation with each test. That irritation confirms the tactic is working and encourages escalation. But imagine showing the exact same neutral response to the first disrespect and the 10th. No change in expression, no shift in tone. The person escalating has no idea if their escalation is accomplishing anything. They're pressing buttons that aren't giving feedback. This creates one of two outcomes. Either they give up because the tactic appears ineffective, or they overreach so dramatically that they expose themselves to everyone watching. Either outcome benefits you. Or imagine someone's trying to make you jealous by mentioning other people or opportunities. Most people's faces betray jealousy or insecurity. That betrayal confirms the tactic is working and encourages more of it. But remaining completely neutral to those mentions sends a powerful message. It says you don't compete on that level. You don't respond to those tactics. That person either stops trying because they're getting nowhere, or they escalate to such obvious attempts that they look desperate to observers. This isn't about being unresponsive to everything. It's about understanding that your reactions are resources, valuable resources that manipulators want access to. When you restrict that access, you fundamentally change the power dynamic. They need something from you that you're no longer providing. That need makes them weaker. Your withholding makes you stronger. Number 5. Blank faces multiply perception of intelligence. Machiavelli noticed something fascinating about how people assess capability. When someone's face is expressive and easy to read, observers unconsciously categorize them as less intelligent, less threatening, less powerful. But when someone's face remains neutral and difficult to read, those same observers attribute greater intelligence and capability to them. It's a cognitive bias. We assume that people who reveal less know more, that people who show less have more to hide, that people who are harder to read are playing a deeper game. Most people's faces are constantly broadcasting their thought process. Because you can watch them think. You can see when they're confused, when they understand, when they're pleased, when they're concerned. This transparency makes them appear simple, not because they are simple, but because we can see their entire process. There's no mystery, no hidden depth, just surface-level emotions on display. But someone whose face remains neutral while processing the same information appears to be operating on a different level. We assume they're thinking things we can't see. We imagine they're several steps ahead. We project competence onto their neutrality. Imagine two people receiving complex information in a meeting. One person's face shows confusion, then understanding, then concern, then acceptance. You've watched their entire emotional journey. The other person's face shows nothing, just stillness and attention. Which person appears more intelligent? Which person appears more in control? The second person, every time. Not because they necessarily understood the information better, but because their lack of visible processing makes us assume they're operating at a higher level. Or picture two people being challenged on their position. One person's face shows defensiveness, then calculation, then forced confidence. You can see them scrambling internally. The other person's face remains perfectly calm throughout the challenge. Which person appears more confident in their position? The second person. Their emotional opacity makes us assume they have knowledge or cards we can't see. This isn't about faking intelligence. It's about understanding that emotional transparency often communicates the opposite of what we intend. We think showing our process makes us seem authentic and relatable. But in competitive situations, it often makes us seem less capable. When you master the blank face, people automatically upgrade their assessment of your capabilities. They assume your stillness indicates depth. They project power onto your neutrality. That projection works in your favor without you having to prove anything. Drop this in the comments. I am depth. Number 6. Emotion is ammunition you're handing them. Every time you display strong emotion, you're giving your opponents exactly what they need to hurt you. This is the part most people never realize. Your emotional displays aren't just reactions. They're instructions. They're literally telling people how to control you. Machiavelli understood that the fastest way to lose power was to reveal what you cared about. Because the moment people know what you care about, they know exactly what to threaten, what to dangle, what to use as leverage. Your emotions are the map to your vulnerabilities. Most people think showing emotion demonstrates passion or commitment. They believe that displaying how much they care about something adds weight to their position. But here's the reality. In any adversarial situation, showing what you care about is tactical suicide. You've just armed your opponent. Someone sees you're emotionally invested in a project, and they now know exactly what to undermine when they want to hurt you. Someone sees you're proud of an achievement, and they know exactly what to diminish when they want to wound you. Someone sees you're afraid of a particular outcome, and they know exactly what to threaten when they want compliance. Imagine you're in a negotiation and you let your face show excitement when someone mentions a particular term or benefit. You've just revealed that term matters deeply to you. The other side now knows they can use that as a bargaining chip. They can threaten to remove it to extract other concessions. Your moment of visible emotion just cost you leverage. Or picture someone criticizing something you've created. If your face shows hurt, you've confirmed that criticism is an effective weapon against you. They'll use it again and again. Every time they need to control you, they'll simply criticize your work and watch you fold. But if your face shows nothing when they criticize, you've communicated that this weapon doesn't work. They'll have to find something else. And in searching for what works, they'll often exhaust themselves or expose their true intentions to others. This isn't about not caring. It's about understanding that what you care about is privileged information, information that should only be shared with people who've earned trust. Everyone else gets a neutral mask that reveals nothing they can use against you. When you stop handing out ammunition in the form of emotional displays, people lose the ability to target you effectively. They're shooting blind, and blind shots rarely hit their mark. Number 7. The longer you're neutral, the harder they try. Machiavelli observed a fascinating pattern in confrontation. When someone attacks and gets an immediate emotional response, they're satisfied. They've accomplished their goal. They can stop. But when someone attacks and gets nothing, no emotion, no reaction, just neutrality, something different happens. They're compelled to try harder. The absence of response becomes psychologically unbearable. They escalate, they push further, and in that escalation, they make mistakes. Big ones. Most people don't understand the psychological torture of being ignored emotionally. When you express anger, sadness, or hurt in response to someone's attack, you've given them closure. They know they affected you. Mission accomplished. But when you give them nothing, their brain refuses to accept the lack of closure. They need to know they had an impact. They need confirmation their tactics worked. Denied that confirmation, they become obsessed with getting it. This obsession causes them to overplay their hand. They escalate from subtle manipulation to obvious aggression, from plausibly deniable tactics to clearly hostile behavior. And the more they escalate while you remain neutral, the worse they look to everyone watching. Picture someone making passive-aggressive comments designed to upset you. Most people show upset, which satisfies the attacker and ends the exchange. But imagine showing absolutely nothing. No change in expression, no acknowledgement that anything was even said. The passive-aggressive person is now in a bind. Their tactic didn't work, so they try again. Still nothing from you. They escalate. The comments become less passive and more aggressive. Still, you show nothing. Eventually, they're so overtly aggressive that everyone around you notices. You maintained neutrality throughout. They descended into obvious hostility. Who looks unreasonable? Or imagine someone trying to provoke you into an argument by making increasingly inflammatory statements. Most people take the bait and engage emotionally. But maintaining perfect neutrality forces them to keep escalating the provocation. Eventually, their provocations become so extreme that they discredit themselves. You never had to argue. You just had to remain neutral while they destroyed their own credibility, trying to break your composure. This isn't about being stubborn. It's about understanding that your continued neutrality creates psychological pressure that forces opponents into errors. They're playing a game that requires your emotional participation. When you refuse to participate emotionally, the game breaks. And broken games reveal the people who are trying to play you. Drop this in the comments. I am pressure. Number 8. They mistake your calm for weakness. Then you strike. This is where emotional control transforms from defense into offense. Machiavelli recognized that the greatest advantage comes not from constant aggression, but from appearing non-threatening until the moment you move. When people see no emotion from you, when they see no reaction, when they see what they interpret as passivity, they make a fatal assumption. They assume you're weak. They assume you're incapable of response. They assume you're not a threat. That assumption makes them careless. Most people reveal their capabilities early. They show anger to appear strong. They display aggression to seem threatening. They make it clear they'll fight back. This display of strength actually puts opponents on guard. It makes them careful. It makes them calculate. It prevents them from making exploitable mistakes. But someone who shows nothing, who absorbs attacks without visible reaction, who appears almost passive in their neutrality, lulls opponents into a false sense of security. They stop being careful. They stop calculating. They assume they're dealing with someone who won't or can't respond. That's when you move. Imagine someone's been testing you repeatedly, each test getting slightly more aggressive. Most people respond to each test, showing increasing frustration or anger. This keeps the opponent calibrated and careful. But imagine absorbing test after test with the same neutral demeanor. The opponent begins to believe you're incapable of meaningful response. They become confident in their dominance. They take a larger risk. That's when you respond. Not with emotion, but with calculated action. Because they've misread your neutrality as weakness. They weren't prepared for capability. Their overconfidence created an opening. Your patience let them create that opening themselves. Or picture a professional situation where someone's gradually taking credit for your work. Most people confront this immediately with emotional protest. But imagine documenting each instance silently while maintaining a neutral public face. The person taking credit becomes emboldened. They take more. They become obvious. Then you present your documentation to the people who matter. Their overreach, enabled by your apparent passivity, becomes undeniable evidence against them. This isn't about being calculating in a cruel way. It's about understanding that emotional control gives you timing. You're not weak because you don't react. You're strategic. You're choosing when and how to respond based on maximum effectiveness, not immediate emotion. That choice is what separates reactive people from dangerous ones. Reactive people show their cards constantly. Dangerous people keep their cards hidden until they're ready to play them. Number 9. Your emotional absence becomes their obsession. Machiavelli understood human nature at its core. People are drawn to what they cannot read. They're obsessed with what they cannot understand. They're bothered by what they cannot affect. When you remove emotional display from your interactions, you become an unsolved puzzle. And unsolved puzzles consume mental resources. While they're obsessing over what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're planning, you're operating freely. They're stuck analyzing your every micro-expression, looking for clues. You're 3 moves ahead because you're not wasting energy on their analysis of you. Most people want to be understood. They want people to read their emotions and respond to them. They crave that emotional reciprocity. But here's what they don't realize. Being easily understood makes you forgettable. Being emotionally readable makes you manageable. Being transparent makes you controllable. But when you're emotionally absent, when people look at you and see nothing they can interpret, something different happens. You occupy space in their minds. They think about you when you're not there. They analyze conversations looking for hidden meaning. They become fixated on decoding you. Imagine someone tries to read your reaction to information and gets nothing. That nothing bothers them. They'll bring it up again later, trying different angles to get a read. Still nothing. You're now living rent-free in their head. They're spending mental energy trying to figure you out while you're not thinking about them at all. That's a resource drain on their end and a resource savings on yours. Or picture a situation where everyone else is emotionally reacting to a crisis. Panic, anger, fear on display. You remain neutral and calm. After the crisis, who do people remember? Not the ones who reacted predictably. They remember the one who showed nothing. Your emotional absence made you the most memorable person in the room. This isn't about being mysterious for the sake of it. It's about understanding that emotional absence creates a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. People's minds abhor a vacuum. They'll fill that vacuum with their own projections, their own fears, their own assumptions. While they're busy filling that vacuum, you're operating in reality. That separation between their imagination and your reality is where your advantage lives. Drop this in the comments. I am unreadable. Number 10. Total emotional control equals total operational freedom. This is the principle that ties everything together. Machiavelli saw that the people with the most freedom to act were the people whose emotions didn't control them and couldn't be used to control them. When you master your emotional display to the point where nothing shows unless you choose to show it, you've achieved something rare. You've removed the primary mechanism through which people manipulate, control, and predict you. You're free to think clearly without emotional interference. Free to act strategically without emotional leakage, giving away your intentions. Free to operate in hostile environments without giving opponents the feedback they need to destroy you. Most people are prisoners of their emotional displays. Their face betrays their thoughts. Their body language reveals their fears. Their micro-expressions expose their desires. This imprisonment means they're constantly being read, predicted, and controlled by anyone paying attention. But when you master emotional control, when your face becomes a wall that reveals nothing unless you choose revelation, everything changes. You can walk into any room and give nothing away. You can sit through any confrontation without broadcasting vulnerability. You can absorb any attack without confirming it landed. That capability is freedom in its purest form. Imagine operating in an environment where everyone's trying to read you, trying to find your buttons, trying to discover what affects you. But there's nothing to find. You've built a fortress. Your emotional opacity is the wall. Your stillness is the guard. Your neutrality is the moat. They can probe all they want. You're unreachable. Or picture making strategic moves that require concealing your true intentions. Most people's faces give away their plans before they execute them. Excitement leaks out. Nervousness shows, calculation becomes visible. But you show nothing. Your plans remain hidden until execution. By the time others realize what you've done, it's already complete. Your emotional control gave you the operational security to move without interference. This isn't about becoming cold or inhuman. Behind your neutral mask, you feel everything. You process everything. You care about everything that matters. But you've learned that displaying those feelings gives others power over you. So you've made a choice. The choice to control what the world sees. That control is what transforms you from someone who gets played into someone who cannot be played. From someone who gets read into someone who remains a mystery. From someone whose emotions become their chains into someone whose emotional mastery becomes their freedom. In this video, you've learned why your emotional displays have been ammunition for those who want to control you. You've discovered how stillness communicates more danger than movement ever could. You've seen how emotional delay creates authority, and how your opponents need your reactions to function. You've understood that blank faces multiply perceived intelligence, and that emotion is ammunition you've been freely handing out. You've recognized how sustained neutrality forces opponents into self-destructive escalation, and how appearing passive allows you to strike when they're careless. You've learned that your emotional absence becomes their obsession, and that total emotional control equals total operational freedom. From this moment forward, you operate differently. You don't broadcast your internal state to people who haven't earned that access. You don't hand out ammunition in the form of emotional reactions. You don't let your face betray what you're thinking, planning, or feeling. When someone attacks, your face remains neutral. When someone tests you, your expression reveals nothing. When someone tries to read you, they get a wall. You've become unreadable, unpredictable, untouchable. The people who once thought they could manipulate you now wonder what you're thinking. The people who once pushed your buttons now realize those buttons no longer work. You've taken back control over the one thing that's been giving them power over you, your emotional display. Now I want you to prove this transformation. Drop this in the comments right now. I am untouchable. Make that declaration public. Commit to this shift. Before you go, if this video changed how you understand emotional control and power dynamics, hit that like button. This information needs to reach people who are still being controlled through their emotions. Share this with someone who shows too much and gets exploited because of it. Subscribe to this channel because we're going even deeper into psychological warfare and strategic awareness. And drop a comment telling me which principle hit hardest. Which one will you implement first? You're unreadable now. Stay neutral, stay dangerous, stay free.